One thing you might know about Hebrew writing, the language in which the Old Testament was written, including the book of Psalms, is that the midpoint of a writing was often the significant point of the writing. That's what it was intended to be, which is a little bit different than how we operate in the English language. As we read books or as we watch movies or television shows, everything is leading towards the end, the high moment at the end, the highest emotion, where everything is resolved, everything comes together, the happy ending. Well, in Hebrew, the significant point was supposed to be the center point. And so when you're reading through something that was originally written in Hebrew, it's interesting to see what that center point is, because it's often an indicator of what's the main thing that the writer wanted to convey through all of their writing. Psalm 23 has a midpoint, a center point. Would you like to know what it is? I will tell you. But first I'm going to tell you what's leading up to it. And what's leading up to it are a lot of things that we don't like to hear about or experience. King David, who wrote Psalm 23, he talks about loneliness. He talks about death. He talks about the shadow of death. So what life is like, the reality of what life is like for those who continue to live after their loved ones die. The impact that death has on them. He talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Longer than we'd like journey through a dark and difficult place. He talks about, in general, just a lot of things that we never want to experience, a lot of things that many of us have experienced, a lot of things that all of us will eventually experience, and a lot of things that some of you right now might be experiencing. And then right after that comes the midpoint of Psalm 23, the significant point. And what is it? It's this line. They comfort me. And he's not talking about those things. Those things don't provide comfort. Something else provides comfort. What is it that provides comfort? Your rod and your staff, they comfort me, David says. It was the rod and the staff of the good shepherd that provided him comfort. And think about what a shepherd, a good shepherd, used his rod and his staff for. He used them for counting his sheep. Make sure he had every one of them. He used them for guiding his sheep, making sure they stay away from danger. He uses them for rescuing the sheep when they've strayed from the path or when they're being attacked by a predator. He uses them for protecting the sheep. When he's not afraid to step into the battle himself. All things that we see Jesus do for people just like us, so often in his ministry. As he counts, as he guides, as he rescues, as he protects from sin, from temptation, from fear of death. And for whom does he do these things? He never once did any of those things for somebody for whom life was going smoothly. No, in every case it was somebody who was hurting in some type of way, somebody who was having a hard time finding comfort. Did it for the lonely man hanging on the cross next to him, feeling not only that everyone around him wanted nothing to do with him, but that God certainly didn't. And Jesus rescued him. He guided him into eternity, into heaven. He did it for individuals who were just walking through a valley of deep, dark guilt. And they couldn't get out of it. So Jesus jumped into the valley and he brought them out of it with his word of forgiveness. He did it for people who thought that they were just invisible to everybody around them, and maybe for good reason. Matthew in the tax collector's booth, the woman at the well, so many of his disciples. He did it for people who were going on one path in life, and Jesus wanted to rescue them from it. Jesus used the rod and the staff of the Good Shepherd for people just like you and me, which means that if you're feeling lonely today, or if you're anticipating your own death, if you're living in the shadow of someone else's death, if you're walking through a deep, dark valley that you just cannot get out of, there's comfort for you. Because the Lord is your shepherd. And not even death was going to stop him from using his rod and his staff to be that shepherd for you. There's comfort for you. Significant comfort. The significant part of the shepherd's heart, what you might consider the midpoint, the thing that he was focused on the most, that he wanted everyone to see, it's always being there for you. Always. Even tonight. Rest well tonight, my friends.